Some trucks out there. Guess I may come back and see that.
Yesterday and I saw these just so that was like
Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining today's webinar. We're just going to give people a few more minutes to get settled and log in and connect to audio, and we'll get started just a couple minutes after the hour. Thanks again for attending.
Tony, can you reshare your slide?
Is that better?
Perfect, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Just giving people a minute or two more to log on and get settled into the Zoom before we begin. Welcome to Shaping the Future with Grambling Digital Library, a conversation with HBCU leadership on the future of librarianship. My name is Tony Zanders, and I'm delighted to be today's host. I'm the founder and CEO of Skilltype, a software company that partners with libraries and universities to help manage talent in a data-driven way. I'm joined today with two of my favorite people, two people who are really leading our industry, each in their own regard, with regard to what does the future look like for our profession as librarians? What does the future look like for higher education professionals? And what's the potential of education and research on our economy and our communities, both locally and around the world? We wanted to gather today to have a conversation about some of the exciting things that are happening at Grambling State University, a historically Black college and university in Louisiana, And we wanted to have this conversation publicly with people who are interested in thinking about what does the future look like for me as a library professional? What are the types of things and opportunities I should be considering as I consider next steps in my career? What are the types of organizations that are forming that I may want to consider being a part of as we're in the middle of what we call the fourth industrial revolution, the shift to a digitally native society, and other trends that are impacting us both politically, societally. And so this is going to be a dialogue that we're firstly going to, I want to make sure everyone understands we'll be recording this. This will be something that people will reference in months to come as these decisions are being made around, should I consider joining an institution like Grambling, or even at my own library as we're thinking about new spaces, new buildings, new types of programming. How can we look to the things that are taking place at Grambling State to inspire us as we execute on our strategic plan? And so this morning, there's going to be a little something for everyone. And before we get into today's conversation, I'll walk through just a couple of housekeeping items. This is a Zoom webinar. As such, we aren't able to have live participation from the guests, but we do have a Q&A function that we'd love for you to take advantage of. We'll be taking those throughout the webinar. So as you have a question or some feedback, please add that into the Q&A area. We'll be saving some time at the end to read out those questions and feedback live for any of our panelists today. As I mentioned as well, this will be recorded, and a link to that will be shared after today's webinar. So without further ado, allow me to introduce today's speakers. We'll be joined by President Rick Gallot, who is the president at Grambling State University. Prior to his start at Grambling, there was an opportunity to rethink what the library's experience was on campus and what role did the library play in that broader research and teaching and learning experience. And under his leadership, he's going to speak to just the opportunity that librarianship has to play in that broader scheme. And so we can't wait to hear from remarks from President Gallot in a few moments. We're also joined by Dean Adrienne Weber, who is the Dean of the Digital Library at Grambling, which also will function as a learning commons. I first met Dean Weber through an introduction from a mutual colleague. And ever since, I've been just captured by her vision for the role the library can play in capturing culture, not just within the Black community here in the United States, but within America writ large. The role that the digital archives will play has great potential to reach communities and institutions, researchers, far beyond the scope of that institution itself because of the scale of digital. And with the focus we have now on the social justice movement here in the United States, coupled with what's being coined as the Great Resignation, there's an interesting conversation to be had that I believe Dean Weber is very forward thinking in at that intersection. So can't wait to hear remarks from her. We'll also give, if technology favors us today, a video tour of the new library that's being constructed here. And so stay tuned for that. And afterwards, I'll follow up with some closing remarks before we go into Q&A. So without further ado, I'd like to unshare my screen and pass the microphone to President Gallot.
All right, can you hear me, Tony?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Well, good morning to everyone who's a part of the webinar this morning. Thank you so much for taking time to visit with us. You know, this is a really exciting time here at Grambling State University as we see the landscape of the university being transformed with what will be the first of its kind, first and only digitally born library here on the campus of Grambling State University. Dean Weber asked me to just brief synopsis of what got us to this point, and just to visit a little bit about the vision for our library. When I became president about 5.5 years ago, our former library was, I guess I'll be kind and say, outdated. It was a building that was mammoth in size, but very much underutilized because it just was not a very welcoming and friendly environment to visit. And so through the help of our, and I won't go into all the politics that were involved in getting the project going, but let me just say that our former chairman of the University of Louisiana System board chair, James Carter, was very instrumental in helping us to move the idea of the project along. So we're very thankful to the University of Louisiana System for providing us with the assistance to get a library consultant. Danelle Williams, okay, this is from Dallas. So when we had our initial meeting, the question was, okay, what kind of library are you interested in building? And I said, well, I can tell you, we don't want just to replace the old building with a similar type structure. I said, we don't want the library of yesterday. We want the library of the future. What does that look like? And so that was really what got us started along this path of the digitally born library. This was not something that, in my experience or background, was something that I knew to bring to the table. So I certainly want to give credit where it's due, and to have a consultant who could really help us to shape the vision of the future of a library is really how we got going. And then, of course, the next step was to try and find a dean, a library dean, who was knowledgeable in the library of the future and what that might look like. And although it took us some time, we finally were able to find Dean Adrienne Weber. And once we began those conversations and interviews, and she was selected as our library dean, I said, you know, there are two things that you will have a unique opportunity to do here at Grambling. Number one, you will be able to oversee the development and design and construction of a new facility. And that is, you know, that's rare to be able to have that opportunity to end-to-end be a part of both the design, development, construction, and operation of a new facility. I said, secondly, you will have an opportunity to build a team that will be capable of providing the support and thought leadership to really utilize and maximize the benefit of a facility like this for the students, for the faculty, staff, and for our entire university community to be able to lead that initiative. So we are very close to the end of the construction part, and of course now making sure that we have the right talent and the right team assembled to really move move this facility forward. So unlike the days of my matriculation here, where the librarian would need to know how to explain the card catalog to students, that is certainly a thing of the past now. And so as we think about a digital library manager will be needed to provide the support we need at the facility, a digital archivist, e-resource manager, emerging technologies librarian, student talent coordinator. These are all positions that we envision, or that Dean Weber and her leadership has envisioned we will need in order to fully staff this library, again, with the type of skill sets that our students will need to help them maximize the benefit of this digital library. So I'll pause right there, Tony, and let you, I guess, guide us on from there.
Thank you so much for those reflections, Dean Gallot. I'm just going to go right into allowing us to hear from Dean Weber, because under her leadership, this new structure is coming into play. But again, as you mentioned, at the end of the day, it's going to be about the people in an environment where there aren't any books, and helping students reimagine and faculty reimagine what is that library experience. The people are going to make the difference. So Dean Weber, we'd love to hear from you. Good morning.
Good morning. As we started talking about this with, after being hired and thinking about how do we move forward, given the opportunity from Prez, the task was great. The opportunity was great. When I first heard about at Grambling State University, I think I was attending a conference, and this announcement appeared that said, Grambling State University is getting a digital library. And I said to some colleagues, Grambling's getting a digital library. They're closing their old library and they're getting a digital library. Nobody else is doing this. This is fantastic. And so they were like, what? I said, listen, look at this article, look at this article. And everybody that I was talking to was just amazed. And we talked about it after the meeting. I said, what a forward-thinking president to be so bold to say that we're going to move books out. And then a few years later, I became the dean of the library. And so the task was even greater, to be able to walk in and say, okay, Prez, here's some things that I think we should do. Here's what we have to do. We're going to have to build a team. And he said, okay, tell me what you need. How do we go about doing this? And said, let's look at what we've had, what we have here, and let's move forward. And we're going to have to build and have people who will engage with our students. We have to change the culture, because when you're at an academic institution, you see this building and you expect, once you walk in, to see a traditional card catalog. You expect to see books, magazines, those traditional things. Well, now with this digital born facility, and we talk about a digital born facility because it's born from the earth. In this space, we knew when we started in 2020 moving this dirt, that there would not be any books in there other than our special collection and our archives. And those two tell the story of the people of Grambling State University, the people of North Louisiana, the people who make up the university community. So having that knowledge of the physical assets that we will have within the facility only strengthens what we have. So when we start talking about changing how our students access information, they will get it when they walk through the door. We have a staff that's in place, and because of Skilltype, they're going through training. And so we're bringing everything together so that the current staff will build upon their skills. And then we're trying to bring others in who have the skill set that we can continuously build on how to access these informational needs that our students will have. We have students from around the world who study here at Grambling State University. And when those students come in, we want them to be able to walk into this facility that is dynamic, built specifically for them. And they can get access to information from every part of the world where it's being created. We're not just looking at what has been. And it's not like going and getting a book that was purchased 10 or 20 years ago and saying, this is what you have. We're getting things that's being created yesterday, published within the last 4 or 5 weeks, and now it's readily available. So they're getting some historical data, but they're also getting things that are cutting edge. So when our students graduate and they can say that they've been at Grambling State University using the digital library, they are prepared students with the information that's needed because they are ready to do research when they hit the floor running. And so what we need from those persons who are in attendance, who are interested in coming to Grambling to work with us, are people who will bring innovative ways to access information, engage our students, so that when they leave Grambling State University, they will show potential employers, that they're the type of employees that they need to have at the table. Our faculty will be ready to work with our library staff so that they will be able to teach our students how to use the resources, engage them, come to the library with their students because they will know what we have there. So we're not just building a building, we're building an experience for our students, our staff, our community, so that this is the footprint of what digital information looks like to America, because we are digitally born. So that's one of the great things about it.
Absolutely. And I think it might make sense, Dean Weber, to show a video you've put together, sort of a time lapse of the building and where it stands today. Just to put a fine point on the comments that we've made, I'm going to share my screen just for a moment, and slideshow mode here. And let's see. I want to share computer sound. Firstly, can everyone see my screen share? It's a thumbnail of a video I'm about to press play. Are you able to see that?
All good.
Show you Grambling's What's Next, and that's the Grambling State University Digital Library and Learning Commons. Here we have the circulation area, our 12 study rooms, which will be located on the first floor, the coffee shop, and the Learning Commons for the first floor. We have our 50-seat computer lab located here, our security desk, and as we move forward, we will have a seminar room that will seat maybe about 200 people if we're in a seminar area and we're having programming. Then we have our stairwell that will go upstairs, and the stairwell will have seating so that we can have an overflow for the seminar room. This is going to be a great place for our students. So now we're on the second floor,
And up here, it's basically going to be a quiet area. We have general seating out here for our students. Oh, by the way, down here, we're going to have a gallery for our archives and some of our resources. In here, this will be our archive section for just general archive research. And back there is where our archives collection will be held. If we walk out here, we're going to have our overall quiet area. We have the balcony available so students can sit out on the balcony and enjoy the view outdoors while they're studying. So we have additional study spaces up here. Students will get an opportunity to study all over the library, some group study, and we have some collaborative study spaces as well. We've made sure that our students will have plenty places to study. They'll get a true digital experience all over this library. They're going to have an excellent opportunity. Study rooms are available for our students and some offices for librarians. This is where we will engage our stakeholders and future stakeholders so that we can continuously be as great as we are at Grambling State University. We will have events in here, basically led by the president. So we will always have a place in the library where we will invite our guests to come in and they will have a vision of where we go as we continue to build our next at
This is a $14 million project that is a dream for most library directors. It's now, I'm sorry, maybe I misquoted. How much is it?
I think we're closer to, actually the construction was 18, but with another 2.5 for machinery and equipment, we're close to right at 20 million now.
Got it. And so I was being conservative. But this is something that library directors dream about when they take on a position, to be able to have the reconstruction of the library be a part of their legacy. It's obvious what the benefits are for students and for researchers and faculty, but it's not all that obvious what the benefits are for employees. And I want to spend just a moment to talk about what this means. At Skilltype, but also in roles I've had at EBSCO, Ex Libris over the past 12 years, I've had the opportunity to work with libraries across over 50 countries, hundreds of libraries, and the direction that the entire industry is going into is the digital library. The timing of this is important because we're experiencing the first generation of students that are entering into our university who are digital born natives. All they've ever known is the touchscreen. They've never experienced Dewey. They've never experienced card catalogs. Their expectation when they step foot into campus is one where they will bring their own device. Anything short of that will miss their expectations. And as a result, this is the trend that universities around the world will be heading towards once they have that capital approved to enter into that project. But from an employment perspective, the experiences that people gain today in 2022, working at an institution that has already taken these steps, that's experience that will translate into a great leadership opportunity for the rest of your career. And so for you in 2022 to be able to be a part of that founding team of the new library, that's going to have to build programming from scratch, build services from scratch. That's the type of experience that is going to take your career to the next level for decades to come. because as other institutions, again, get that capital approved to execute on a large scale project like this, they're going to be seeking out professionals who have already done it. They're going to want people who have been through, what was it like, right? When you were on the ground launching this new library. Tell us about your experiences. How did you navigate these challenges? How did you navigate these problems? And so few and far in between are opportunities to put a chapter like founding a digital library on your resume, on your CV. And it's one that's going to translate for all of us. So that's one thing that stood out to me on this project. A question on that topic, Dean Weber, for you that I have as we transition into Q&A. There's not many points of inspiration you've been able to find for institutions that are kind of embarking on similar projects with fully digital libraries. But there are one or two that we've been able to find. Can you share a bit about sort of what you've been able to find in terms of examples and what those conversations and have been like thus far?
Well, the conversations have been, as you say, far and few in terms of digital libraries. I think one of the greatest things that I've been able to find is the support starting here at the institution. And that's key, is having the support here for making the library the best that it can be for our students and our university community. So when you have a president that's behind you, and you have state government that's behind you, that's one thing. And that's the most important part in your provost, saying, okay, Dean Weber, go and do what you need to do. That's a key component. That's not a paid statement that I'm making. That's a true statement, because so often you don't hear that from colleagues. That's a struggle. That's a struggle I've had at some other institutions that I've worked, but I have the support of my administration. So I can check that box with a permanent marker and say, I have that. The second thing is when I talk to my colleagues around the country at other HBCUs, they are proud of the steps that we're making in terms of having this digital born library, and they think it's a wonderful, wonderful concept. The question then comes, so you're not gonna have books. And then when I talk about the old library, and we did have the books there, and we had to, we no longer have that. They're saying, so you're not gonna have books. No, we're not, but we still engage our students and talk about the resources that we have access to for them. And we talk about interlibrary loan services and the things that they can get for those who still demand books. And then the next level is we've been able to find another library that's being constructed at the same time. That's a digital born library in Cambridge, in the UK. And to have a conversation with them and to talk to them, it seems as though we're facing the same kinds of opportunities and challenges that they face when you talk about students and faculty who have the questions. So you're not gonna have books. So, every question, and even talking to vendors and having the same kinds of things that happen with, even in terms of the pandemic, when you run into issues of the pandemic, those things that we were trying to get from overseas, those things that they're trying to get from the US. Everything that we've encountered, they've encountered also. So it's good to know that there are some issues that have come up, and it's just about training, retraining, and having persons who understand that with staffing, it's not going to be the way that we've always done it. we've got to retrain and understand that students will need our help. Faculty will need our help. The community will need our help to understand that we're providing access to resources that are readily available for them, and no, they will not get it the same way. They can't come in, grab a book and walk out. What they're gonna do is come in, use a computer, access it, and then they can take that information. Once we teach them how to have this soft skill, they can take that soft skill and apply it in anything in life. So information literacy and knowing how to access, knowing what you need, how to access it, and how to apply it becomes very critical in everything you do in life. So that's one of the key components when we talk about our strategic plan and when we talk about what we're going to do here and talk about the needs of this library, is having the ability to provide access to information in various formats that's digitally applied, so that when a person walks in, here's what we can provide you with, and here's where you can get it. And if we don't have it, and we're not gonna have access to everything that's out there and available, but we know where to get it. And that's the key, is having persons who know how, where, and where to get it so that we can provide it to our students. When we talk about having majors such as cloud computing, cybersecurity, a PhD in criminology and justice, and social work, and education, we have to be prepared so that our students will be prepared when they go out. We're training nurses on various levels. We have students in business, and we have all of these accreditations. And so in order to be able to have these students prepared when they leave Grambling State University, they come in on exit 81 and they leave out on exit 81. So when they're leaving out on exit 81, we want them to be competitive, and we don't want them to have any roadblocks when they leave, where someone says, well, you don't know how to use the library, and you've been at an institution with a digital library, our expectations are great. So we want to have those persons who are here that can train our students to be competitive, so that when they put on their resume that they're a graduate of Grambling State University, and I know how to competently and effectively use the library, and I am a researcher from as an undergraduate or a graduate student or a doctoral student, they know that they're getting a student who can find the information that's needed, that's above other students in most instances, but also as competitive as any other student in the country. And that's the goal, that's the overall goal that I want this library to be able to do, and have the people here who are ready to be able to say, I helped that student.
Information literacy in the digital library is far better preparation for the modern economy than information literacy in the traditional brick and mortar library. Even as I recruit new employees for Skilltype, whether these are software engineers or even non-technical people, a large competency is the ability for people to navigate a complex information landscape to find the information you need. If you talk with our software developers, the software development space is moving so rapidly that no matter how many years of experience they have, they still have to resort to Google, Stack Overflow, and other websites to find information they need, even as seasoned software developers. And navigating that information landscape, solving your own authentication issues and the right password issues and connectivity to devices, all of these are becoming table stakes to function in the modern economy. And so information literacy, starting at the undergraduate level in a digital library, is going to become some of the best preparation for being employed in this modern economy. I want to change gears just for a moment, because one of the things that inspired me when I first visited Grambling a few months ago and saw the construction taking place is the concept of the digital archive. For those who have an opportunity to visit an HBCU, specifically Grambling, you instantly see the amount of culture and heritage and history that's stored there. I had a chance to go to the Eddie Robinson Museum, and I didn't even realize the scale and scope of his impact on not just the game of football, but also just on equality in America. But for those who don't get the opportunity to physically visit, who don't get a chance to see that rich history, digitization and the digital archive is going to open up an entirely new world and audience for that heritage and for that history. And so one of the questions I have for you, Dean Weber and President Gallot, we're having this conversation during a moment in time when the whole world is paying attention to Black culture. The whole world is paying attention to Black history. The tragedies of last summer sparked a conversation around social justice and the role that Black culture plays in the broader society. And some people found out about Grambling for the first time through an album and a video that Beyonce made. And the marching band, and that became one of the most popular songs on iTunes, right? But when we talk about that history and heritage, we all know because we had a chance to physically visit. But we changed the conversation and say, you know, what impact can a librarian have working in a digital archive? What impact can an archivist have in impacting the culture? What are some of the opportunities you see in unlocking that rich heritage and that rich history through making a digital archive available to the world?
You know, I guess the first thing I'll point out, and I appreciate you putting a few plugs in for the Eddie Robinson Museum and other aspects of the university community. You know, one of the things that we've done here recently during the pandemic is to launch the Doug Williams Center for the Study of Race and Politics in Sports. And so when you think about the intersection of race and politics and sports, when you think about what Muhammad Ali went through during his time and challenges that he faced after changing his name and all of that, other prominent athletes, you know, Jim Brown and what was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and so many of the others who, Doug Williams himself, and you know many of the challenges that he faced as the first Black quarterback to start in a Super Bowl and to be named Super Bowl MVP. All of the Colin Kaepernick, you think about the movement that has been created by Colin Kaepernick and how we have the center to study how sports has impacted all of these different areas, and having a digital library and the archives that will serve as a repository of this information, as well as serving as a center for research, not only in that area to support the Doug Williams Center, but as Dean Weber mentioned, launching our program this fall, the PhD in criminology and justice studies. You know, you think about the George Floyd case and Ahmaud Arbery and how the landscape of justice administration has been transformed, not just in recent years, but how it's been impacted, and our ability to be a go-to place for the study of these very important societal issues that we face. So there are just so many things that we look to be able to do more than just a library, a place for students to go to and study. This is quite frankly a window that will be open to the entire world to be a part of the utilization of this state-of-the-art, first of its kind libraries.
Yeah, we just see it as a portal. It's just one part of the portal that will open up to so much. And all we need is an opportunity to show the world what we can do. We look at the hub of what all has happened over the years. In this portion of the state, we haven't even talked about the deacons of defense and the history of those individuals and what took place during that time. In the state of Louisiana, it's just so much in the rich history. So the digital archives will play a role and things can become alive and go back and show the history. And then there are persons who throughout history of this area and the history of Grambling State University, who have been contributors to society, whose records will probably become a part of the digital archive. Because what we have seen at other places is that sometimes families just don't know what to do with records. And instead of throwing them away, hopefully someone will say maybe Grambling will be able to use them to help tell the story of a community within this area. And that's how we maintain the history of the world, of a community, because somebody has to tell that story and put it in a repository so that it will be told. And so we have to be able to do that. And there's so many people who are graduates of the institution. So I think that that's a great place to get those records and have them out.
And people who join you on this journey at this particular time are not only in for the ride of their lives professionally, but the entire world is looking to them and their experiences, because the conversations that we're having right now are taking place in universities around the world. Presidents, provosts, library deans are all asking these types of questions. How can we create a more inclusive institution? How can we look to history to find examples to improve equity on campus? How can we become more diverse institutions? They're asking these questions, but these are questions that you've had the answers to for a long time. The question is, how can you better share that story, and who's going to be a part of the group of people that showcase that rich heritage and history during a time when people are asking these very questions at their institutions. And so I've personally been inspired by the opportunity, and it's one that I think, as Prez mentioned earlier, there are concrete opportunities to join and participate in the coming months. In our remaining moments, can we talk a bit about the timeline for where we are for opening up the new digital library? And I know Black History Month's coming up next month, but kind of where are we in that process?
I'm sorry, I got distracted by a text message. Could you repeat the question, Tony? I'm sorry.
It's okay. I was just trying to wrap up on the timeline of the digital library, where we are in the process, because there's some exciting months ahead, and there are concrete opportunities for people to get involved. And so do we have any updates on, because I know with construction in general, as things come up, especially with the pandemic and other things, it's not as predictable as anyone would like, but where are we in terms of the timeline?
So I believe right now we're looking at a completion date during an opening in the month of March. So we're really not that far away now. There are some items that are still victims of the COVID supply chain challenges, but by and large, the building, I mean, they're moving furniture in right now. So we're getting very close, and right now we believe that in the month of March, we will be in a position to open the facility. So yeah, we're moving forward.
Yes. Which is a good thing. I go by every day, take a look, see how many new boxes have been added. This morning when I drove up, there was an 18-wheeler out there delivering boxes. So I know that that's furniture coming in. So March seems to be a good time. So this timing is very good for us.
That's amazing. I can't wait to come up again for the ceremonies that take place. And as we wrap up, I want to just show one more slide with some contact information, because as I mentioned, there are concrete opportunities to get involved. And this conversation is happening during a time when what the media is describing as the Great Resignation, but there are a lot of people who are wondering, what's next for me in my career? There are people at libraries asking, you know, I've just spent 18 months airing frustrations on my workplace and you know, because I don't fit in, they don't appreciate my value because of my background and my demographics. Well, at an HBCU, it's a completely different experience, especially given for people of color. And so I wanted to share Dean Weber's email address in case people have questions around any of these opportunities. And as we wrap up, any closing remarks from either of you?
Looks like we have something in the Q&A section, Tony.
Yep, let's see here. Oh, we do. Hold on one second. Let me unshare so I get a better view. Great question from Matt. Firstly, thanks for sharing your work. Congratulations. It's fascinating to create an inspiring vision in space. I'm really interested in the role of the physical building as a hub gateway for digital content. Will access to the digital library be site or space specific? In other words, do people have to be in the physical library to access the digital library? So that's the first question in a two-part question.
No, we will have access. You will be able to access the information remotely as in any library. Our students and our university community will have access to library resources. On our open net, you will be able to access it if you're outside in the commons area around the library as well. So community access will be available from that perspective.
And there's also a host of upgrades that are currently being evaluated and underway across various software platforms to increase access in a personalized way. In the digital library, a lot of the ways people interact with the collections will have to take place through modern software. And so looking at new systems like Open Athens and other tools that allow authentication to take place remotely, virtually, or from mobile. There's a host of other upgrades that are taking place in conjunction with that physical building. Matt had a second part to his question related to this. I'm interested in whether you are considering hybrid services to enable remote virtual access to content for people who are unable to visit in person. So things like virtual reading rooms or virtual teaching spaces. It's an interesting concept. Mm-hmm.
That is a very interesting concept, and that's something that we will investigate. Thank you for that. And this is recorded, so we'll be able to go back and look at it and take a look at it. Matt, thank you so much for that.
You know, I think if we we hadn't learned anything else, Tony, during this pandemic, and to Matt and his question, is the need to be nimble and innovative. And so, you know, as I think about the room we're actually sitting in right now, is our distance learning room. And Grambling was actually a forerunner in the state of Louisiana in terms of distance learning. Well, distance learning looks very different now than it did when it was first launched. So the ability to be able to utilize the digital library space, or part of the digital library space, for remote delivery of instruction, and what that next challenge or opportunity that comes about as a result of the pandemic, and just opportunities to be able to teach and deliver instruction differently. We're certainly wide open to all of the possibilities, and obviously just by virtue of the launch of a facility of this type, we're not adverse to doing things that have never been done, or things that are not normal to be done. So yeah, we're open to any and all ideas, and thank you for that one.
Now, as an institution, we do have a number of online programs. So we do offer classes online.
Awesome. I'm going to share my screen once again. For contact information for Dean Weber. And in our final moments here, I just want to give a heartfelt thanks to the Black Caucus and BCALA for hosting this webinar today. I just also want to thank President Gallot and Dean Weber for their time. And thanks to the audience for tuning in after the new year. Hopefully this conversation added a different perspective on the questions that we're all asking about our careers. What's the future of the library? What's the role of these conversations we're having in society, and how can the library and archives play a more active role, front seat role in being a place of information to guide these important conversations. And so be in touch with us online, on social media. Hopefully this is the beginning of a conversation that we can take into our circles. And so thanks again for everyone's time, and I hope everyone has a great week.
Thank you.
Thank you.